What's up, Renegades? I am Lupine Fiasco. Welcome back to Daily FaB Gameplay. We have a special game today. This is our first experience against the new hero in Bright Lights, Maxx the Hype Nitro. I have no idea what this hero does. I have played him all of twice in my pre-releases this last weekend. What does he look like in Constructed? How is the FaB matchup? This is week 0. I don't expect Maxx decks to look like this in a month, in 2 months, by the time he hits Living Legend. But we can use this as a baseline for how we sideboard, how we play against the hero. And once that baseline is challenged by more tuned Maxx lists, we can iterate from there. But this is game 1. This is Bright Lights week 0. Let's jump into the sideboard, game plan, and path to victory, supposedly. Today we will be playing the Emberblade deck list that you all know and love. This deck link is available in the video description below. While you are down there, please subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. It's the best way to support free FaB content on your feed every day. Leave a comment if you have any questions or feedback for me, and at the end of this video, if you liked it, if you had a good time, click that like button. For this matchup, we have lost the die roll, but our Maxx is choosing to go first. My understanding of Maxx is he is an aggressive character. This is an aggro mirror. As such, going second, we are going to keep our Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. We will be boarding out our Warmonger's Diplomacies and bringing in our Command and Conquers. Warmonger's Diplomacy is something I really should be testing against Maxx. His hero ability is a non-attack action. Banksy requires Maxx to crank, so if Maxx cannot play items or make hyperdrivers under the effects of war, then he cannot attack with Banksy. Maybe Warmongers is worth it. I don't know this early how often Maxx wants to be using his ability, how detrimental it is to us if Maxx has 1 or 2 hyperdrivers. I don't know how often Maxx can get to 3 hyperdrivers and play a Nitro Mechanoid. This is week 0, but on the surface, Warmonger's Diplomacy against Mechanologist historically has not been a very powerful card. Command and Conquer at least does something. It blocks 3, it attacks for 6, it potentially threatens the arsenal, and if Maxx is looking to play that Nitro Mechanoid, he won't have Crown of Providence, so there's actually a chance of CNC being disruptive. I also want to draw your attention to red Bittering Thorns in this list. Now that Round the Table is released, it is illegal in Classic Constructed play. I am testing it over Ravenous Rabble. Ravenous Rabble is a 0 for 4 that is very strong in our deck, or it is a 0 for 2 that is really, really bad. Emberblade lists do have a higher blue count. Having another play set of 1 costs in the list may or may not be detrimental. We're going to be paying attention to that in our Emberblade gameplay. Just casually noticing this, would this red Bittering Thorns be better as a Ravenous Rabble, or is it good as Bittering Thorns? With all that in mind, let's take a look at the game and walk through our turns decision by decision. Getting into it here. Our opening hand is a little clunky. If Maxx does not make us block, then maybe this is okay. But as it is, no blues, 1 starter, 2 snatches don't play very well together. We see Maxx play a gas up. Gives the next boost attack +4 power, does not interact with a banished hyperdriver at this point. 0 to 60 coming in for 8. We're going to play a defensive Art of War. It gives us a chance to cycle some cards out of our hand and maybe set up a good turn one while mitigating some damage. We're going to look to keep our starter here, blocking 7 on the 0 to 60. We also do have a Ronin Renegade that blocks 3 in case Maxx does choose to attack with Banksy. Maxx playing a Dissolving Shield. You can see it is 0 for 3, 0 for 2 now that Maxx has cranked it as a defensive tool. Maxx activating the Teklo Foundry Heart that will let him activate the hero power, crank, and attack with Banksy. And we are going to block that Banksy here. Overall, looks like a strong turn 1 for Maxx. Dissolving Shield is likely not the play, but I respect testing it. I think a card in Arsenal would be more impactful for Maxx here, but maybe Dissolving Shield is good enough. Our hand is not great. Blaze Headlong does not have natural go again. Command and Conquer certainly doesn't. Neither Soulbead Strike has natural go again. We could pitch a Soulbead Strike into 5 to pick up a Phoenix Flame, attack for 0. That turns on our Emberblade. We could follow the Emberblade up with a Blaze Headlong or a Command and Conquer, depending on whether we wanted an Arsenal or not. I believe the best play here is to pitch our Soulbead Strike into 5, Phoenix Flame for 0, CNC for 6. It is less damage over this turn cycle than if we Emberbladed Blazed Headlong, but playing the CNC lets us put the Blazed Headlong into Arsenal. I'm more excited about that than having a Command and Conquer in Arsenal. So that's what I would do here if I was making this decision now. Instead, we are going to just play the Command and Conquer, pitching our Soulbead Strike. This is fine. We push the same amount of damage. This keeps a blue in our hand. Emberblade lists are very blue hungry, but they play a lot of blues. So we may get punished by having the Soulbead Strike in hand, but keeping a blue to fuel the next turn is defensible, and we see it does pay off for us here, as a blue really makes this hand pop off. Maxx choosing not to use the Dissipating Shield on our Command and Conquer, I think, is a mistake. The nature of Steam counters disappearing at the start of the turn just says that he should look to get value where he can. Here, another Gas Up does not have an effect. There is no Hyperdriver in Maxx's Banish Zone. Expedite coming in for 7. We're not going to block. Treating this like any aggro mirror, where the only thing that we're blocking, with some exceptions, is lethal damage or a disruptive on-hit. Maxx does stick the on-hit trigger, playing a Hyperdriver from hand. Now coming to 2 Hyperdrivers, attacking with Banksy, which we aren't going to block, and keeping these Hyperdrivers around a little longer. On our side of the board, being an Emberblade list, there isn't too much sequencing to worry about here. We do want our Mounting Anger to come out later in the turn cycle, just in case Maxx wants to give us equipment for vanilla damage, like we see here. We'll follow this with the Emberblade. We will play our Blaze Headlong next. Maybe get a few more blocks from Maxx, looking to get a block with this Hyper X3 Helm. It is 1 with Battle Worn, so it and the card from hand would stop the Mounting Anger breakpoint. We're looking at this point to Arsenal Branded Cinderclaw and set up a 5-card hand for our next turn. Here, Maxx is taking quite a bit of damage. So if we could set up a 5-card hand coming up, maybe draw an Art of War or Spreading Flames, we're in great shape. Maxx choosing not to block this Mounting Anger. We're going to react, pick up our Phoenix Flame, and banish the flame to the Mounting Anger effect. Still not breaking Pouncing Links here, but we're a little more interested at this point. If Maxx really wants to keep these 4 cards, which he does, we'll make him bleed for it. So here we are going to break the Phoenix Flame. Salt the Wound is worth 7 points of damage at this point, between 4 hits and a Shuko trigger. We are also now going to attack with our Brand with Cinderclaw. Brand here worth 4 points of damage if it hits, 3 for its own printed damage, and 1 for the Salt the Wound hit. Salt coming in for 8. We are very satisfied with a 23 damage turn here, and we're going to see if it was worth it on Maxx's side of the board. Expedite, boost, generating 2 resources from the hyperdriver. We're fine to let this hit. We don't care if Maxx wants to play out an item for free, but he does not. Here, Maxx coming in for 4 with boost. There is no on-hit. T-Bone boosted. We will block this with Snapdragon Scalers. And again, nothing from hand. We are just interested in pushing damage, and nothing here is preventing us from doing that. Maxx activation, generating a 3rd hyperdriver, attacking with Banksy. We're happy to let Banksy hit. So we're not seeing Maxx push a ton of damage or on hits, but I do like what I'm seeing here, that the next 0 for 3 boost is going to generate 3 resources. That's belittle minimalism. This is LSS giving us FaB with fixed belittle. It isn't, but it's a fun game seeing what Maxx is doing and thinking, well, once these lists get a little tuned, this is interesting. On our side of the table, we are seeing red Bittering Thorns for the first time and seeing that it would be better in this situation as Raven's Rabble. Let's talk a little about this hand. We had the 2 head jabs here. Brand with Cinderclaw, Lava Vein Loyalty, Bittering Thorns, and Lava Burst. We need to start our turn cycle with Brand as the Draconic starter, but we could have followed that with Bittering Thorns. So let's think about how we could have sequenced this. As it is, it looks like we will be going 3-3, pitch Bittering Thorns to FaB to get our Phoenix Flame. Phoenix Flame damage totals 7. Lava Burst coming in for 6. A 13 damage turn cycle. How could we have worked Bittering Thorns in here? We could have played our Brand, pitch Lava Burst to play Bittering Thorns, follow that with Lava Vein Loyalty, finish with our Phoenix Flame. Let's say the Bittering Thorns hit. That is 3, 7, 11, 12 points of damage. I believe that is the 2nd best line that we could have taken, and it is the best line that works Bittering Thorns into our turn. And we see that it is 1 less point of damage than just pitching the Thorns to FaB. Again, if this was Raven's Rabble, the turn would be better for us. So that is a knock against Bittering Thorns, and that's something we need to consider when we're testing this new card. We'll finish out the rest of this turn. Be looking to activate FaB here, which we do. Pick up our Phoenix Flame. Get the last point of Battle 1 on Foundry Heart and finish with Lava Burst for 6. This game is looking pretty unlosable at this point. We have 21 effective health between our 2 pieces of blocking armor. We still have our Snapdragons. Maxx playing a Boom Grenade and cranking it. Boom Grenade, great new card, essentially 0 for 4, with Go Again. And if he can hit some good breakpoints, it's very scary. Rev Up here is 6 damage. Rev Up here, essentially New Throttle. How do we want to block this? Let's think about our turn cycle. We do have a blue, so Rising Resentment, Searing Emberblade, Bittering Thorns is on the table as an potentially 11 damage turn cycle. We would sequence Rising Resentment into Bittering Thorns, into Searing Emberblade. Notably, Bittering Thorns buffs the power of the next attack, not attack action card, which is what we're familiar with from Mounting Anger. So Bittering Thorns can buff the power of Searing Emberblade or of a Kodachi. This rev up represents 10 points of damage, 6 from its own printed damage and 4 from the Boom Grenade. We know that Maxx can follow this up with a Hyperdriver and Banksy. Looking at taking 13 points of damage here still doesn't kill us, but maybe something we want to address. How are we going to play out this hand? We have a few options. We still have our Snapdragons available, so we know we need this Rising Resentment and we need this blue. We could E-Strike, 5, draw a card, snap, and bottom this Bittering Thorns. We could Bittering Thorns, E-Strike, snap, Searing Emberblade. If we pick up our Phoenix Flame and bottom the Bittering Thorns to a 7 damage E-Strike, we're looking at 3, 6, 7, 14 points of damage. If we E-Strike, bottom Bittering Thorns, draw a card, with a theoretical 3 damage attack off the top, we're looking at 5, 8, 11, 14, 15. If we bottom our Rising Resentment to the E-Strike and open with Bittering Thorns, we are looking at 4, 6, 9, 12 points of damage. So the optimal line here is to open with E-Strike, bottom Bittering Thorns, draw a card, snap it, see what happens. Giving up our E-Strike and armor to stop this hit and prevent the Boom Grenade has us dealing a potential 11 points of damage, but we're not taking lethal damage here. What I'm looking to do is trade in these 2 pieces of equipment. Shuko here, not likely to get another trigger before the game ends, so let's get our block value from it. We'll trade the first half of Flamescale Furnace for 2 life. Maxx threatening 13 points of damage. If we take 9 of that, it puts us to 7. A comfortable life total when we are probably going to end the game on our next turn. Here, checking the Phoenix Flame, I would like to bottom the Phoenix Flame to E-Strike if I can, if I had a second one. Just looking to know if I could play out this Bittering Thorns. But here we see, again, considering that the game would end if we were able to play out Rising Resentment, Searing Emberblade, Ravenous Rabble, pick up a Phoenix Flame and bottom it to E-Strike, we have another knock against Bittering Thorns. Just, again, we're testing a new card. We're seeing where it does and doesn't slot into situations better than the old card. We've got 2 counts against a Bittering Thorns here. Bittering Thorns costing 1, just messing up our turn cycle. Taking a slightly suboptimal play here, again, not opening with E-Strike, draw a card, but we will still be presenting 14 points of damage this turn. Maxx with no blocking equipment left, a theoretical 12 points of block in hand. This is lethal damage. So, still good enough to win the game, maybe not the ideal play, but sometimes good enough is good enough. Attacking for 7, and Maxx packs it in. Not a great showing for Maxx. Something I was expecting. This is week 0. We are far from tuned lists, but we can really see the foundations of what Maxx is trying to do, there was a point in time when Maxx had 3 hyperdrivers out, and it was pretty easy for him. It was not a huge challenge, and that speaks well to the potential of Nitro Mechanoid. We saw Maxx with some great attacks, some above-rate buffs that interact very well with potential hyperdrivers in Banish that are banished from boosting. If Maxx ends up playing anything with Scrap, that's a great way to get hyperdrivers from the discard into the banish zone, and that increases the power of Gas Up. I assume Maxx is running Recharge, which is just going to be a great card overall. 1 for 4 that puts a steam counter on a hyperdriver to generate more value over future turns. So that's what we're looking for in this week 0. Can we tell what the hero will look like? I'm not expecting any of these heroes to perform well over the next week, maybe not even in ProQuest, but we can see what they could be. So I'm pretty impressed with Maxx. I might look to tinker around with him myself once lists become available. On our side of the table, we could have optimized our play a bit better. We had a few suboptimal lines. We can see that Bittering Thorns didn't really carry its weight. One game certainly does not conclude my testing. I am looking to get more information about Bittering Thorns, more experience with it. But so far, Ravenous Rabble may deserve its spot. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you all learned a bit. I hope you all found this useful. If you did like it, be sure to smash that like button. Otherwise, I will see all of you back here tomorrow for more FaB gameplay. And hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.